Aaron was a young farmer who lived in a small village on the edge of wide fields and quiet forests. His life was simple and peaceful. Each morning he woke before the sun and worked the soil, feeding animals and repairing old tools passed down from his father. At night he would sit outside his wooden house, looking at the sky full of stars. He often wondered what lay beyond those shining lights, but such thoughts felt like dreams too far away from his world of soil and sweat. One summer night the air felt strange. The wind carried no sound of crickets, no call of night birds. The silence was heavy, and Aaron noticed the sky glowing brighter than usual. Suddenly a streak of light rushed across the dark sky. It was not like a falling star he had seen before. This light was stronger, closer, and it burned a path through the heavens as if tearing them apart. Aaron stood up, eyes wide, as the streak grew larger until it vanished into the forest with a deep thundering sound. The earth trembled beneath his feet. Curiosity replaced fear in his heart. Without thinking too long, Aaron grabbed a lantern and started walking toward the forest. His steps were quick and sure, for he knew the paths well. Trees loomed tall, their shadows dancing under the flickering lantern. The smell of smoke and metal grew stronger as he went deeper. Then, in a small clearing, he found something that took away his breath. A silver pod lay broken among the trees. Its surface was smooth and shining, though cracked and smoking from the fall. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its side. Aaron had never seen such a thing. He carefully stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. A low hiss came from the pod as a hatch slowly opened. Warm air escaped, and inside he saw someone moving. Out of the pod stepped a young beautiful alien woman. She had soft natural beauty that did not seem human yet was gentle and striking. Her skin was pale silver, glowing softly under the moonlight. Her long hair floated around her shoulders like fine threads of light. Her eyes were large, full of sadness and confusion. She looked weak as if her journey had drained her strength. Aaron froze. He had imagined many things in his life, but never had he thought of meeting someone from beyond the stars. The woman looked around as if searching for something familiar, but all she saw were trees and shadows. She tried to walk forward, but her knees gave way. Without thinking, Aaron rushed forward and caught her before she fell. She landed in his arms, light as a feather. Her skin felt cool, almost like touching smooth stone warmed by the sun. For a moment they stayed like that, two lives from different worlds connected in silence. Her eyes met his, and Aaron felt a strange bond form. It was not fear that filled him, but an urge to protect her. She tried to speak, her voice soft and melodic, though he could not understand the words. Still, the meaning was clear in her tone. She was lost, afraid, and in need of help. Aaron gently set her down on a fallen log. He offered her water from a small flask he carried, and though hesitant, she accepted with a weak smile. She drank slowly, her hands trembling. The broken pod behind her hissed again, sparks flying as if the machine was breathing its last breath. Aaron knew whatever had brought her here was no longer safe. The forest was quiet again, but Aaron felt the weight of danger in the air. Whoever this woman was, she had not fallen from the sky by chance. Someone, somewhere, might be searching for her. Yet in that moment he made a silent promise to himself. She had landed in his arms, and he would not let harm come to her. The night grew colder. Aaron took off his worn cloak and placed it over her shoulders. She looked at him with surprise, then gave a nod of thanks. Her silver eyes reflected the lantern light, and Aaron felt that she carried stories far greater than he could ever imagine. But those stories would have to wait. For now, she needed safety, and he was the only one who could give it. Holding the lantern high, Aaron helped her stand again. She leaned against him for support, her steps unsteady but determined. Slowly they began walking back toward the edge of the forest. Behind them, the silver pod lay broken, smoke curling into the night sky. Ahead of them, a bond had been formed, one that would lead Aaron far beyond the life of a simple farmer. As they reached the path out of the forest, Aaron looked once more at the stars. He no longer saw them as unreachable lights. Tonight, one of them had come down to meet him. And though he did not yet understand her story, he knew his own story had just begun. Aaron guided the strange woman slowly out of the forest. The lantern swung in his hand, casting long shadows along the path. She leaned on him for support, her steps small and uneven. Though her body was weak, her eyes never stopped moving. She looked at the trees, the stars, and the earth beneath her feet as if everything was both new and familiar. Aaron wondered who she truly was, and why she had come from the sky. When they reached his small wooden house, Aaron opened the door and helped her inside. The room was warm from the fire he had left burning. The woman sat down on a chair near the hearth, her silver skin glowing softly in the light. Aaron poured her a cup of water and placed it in her hands. She accepted it with a quiet nod, then closed her eyes as if to gather her strength. For a while, silence filled the room. Aaron sat across from her, unsure what to say. His heart still raced with questions. Was she hurt? Was someone looking for her? Would danger follow her here? At last, she opened her eyes and spoke. Her words flowed like music, a language unlike any he had heard. He shook his head, showing he could not understand. She paused, then touched her chest gently and said one word clearly. Lyra. Aaron repeated it slowly. Lyra. She smiled faintly, then pointed at him. Aaron, he said, placing a hand on his own chest. Her silver eyes softened as she repeated his name. It was a small bridge between two worlds. They had no common tongue, yet in that moment both felt closer. Lyra then tried again. This time she spoke slowly, shaping her words with effort. It surprised Aaron that he could understand fragments. She must have been listening to him, learning quickly. Piece by piece, she explained. She was not only from another world but from a royal family. She used the word princess and touched the symbol on her arm, a glowing mark that shimmered faintly under her skin. Aaron's eyes widened. A princess. He looked at the broken pod in the forest and thought of the fire in the sky. This was no ordinary visitor. She came from a place where the stars were not dreams but homes. Lyra continued with effort. She said her ship had been attacked in the deep dark between worlds. Enemies had hunted her people for many years. When the battle grew desperate, she escaped in a small pod, hoping to reach safety. But the pod had fallen to a world unknown to her, and that world was Earth. Aaron listened in silence, his hands resting on his knees. He could hardly believe the words. Yet her eyes carried truth. She was far from home, a leader in her world, and now she was lost and alone on his. When she finished, her voice trembled. She looked down, as if ashamed of her weakness. Aaron leaned forward, his tone firm though gentle. You are safe here, he said. I will not let harm come to you. Lyra raised her head slowly. She studied his face, reading his sincerity. Then she gave a soft nod. Her trust in him grew stronger, though they had known each other for only a short time. As the fire cracked in the hearth, Lyra began to explain more. Her people valued not only royal blood but also the bond between pilot and princess. Every royal figure traveled with a sworn pilot, one who shared loyalty and courage. It was not only a duty but a promise that shaped destiny. Her pilot had been lost in the attack, and she carried the weight of that loss. Aaron thought about her words. He had never flown anything greater than a wagon pulled by horses, yet he felt a stirring inside him. To stand at her side as protector, to give her strength when she had none, was something he could imagine doing. The night grew long, but neither felt sleepy. They spoke in broken words and simple signs, yet the meaning passed between them. Aaron shared stories of his farm and village, and Lyra listened with interest. She spoke of her world, filled with towers that touched the clouds and oceans with glowing waves. Though her words were simple, her eyes painted the beauty of her home. At last, Lyra grew weary. Aaron gave her his own bed, insisting she needed rest. He spread a blanket near the fire for himself. As he lay down, he stared at the ceiling and thought of the strange path his life had taken in just a single night. Yesterday he was a farmer, dreaming of stars from afar. Today he had met a princess from beyond those stars, and she had placed her trust in him. Lyra, resting in the next room, whispered his name softly before sleep took her. Though she had lost her world, she had found a protector. Outside, the night sky stretched wide and endless. The broken pot in the forest smoked faintly, a silent sign that her enemies might not be far behind. But in the small wooden house, two lives from different worlds were bound together, beginning a journey neither had expected. The morning sun rose gently over the fields, painting the sky with shades of gold and red. Aaron stepped outside his wooden house, carrying a bucket of water from the well. His mind was restless from the strange night before. He glanced back through the open doorway and saw Lyra resting quietly on his bed. She looked peaceful, yet even in sleep there was a weight upon her face, as if her dreams were full of memories too heavy to carry. Aaron's heart felt torn. He was only a farmer, and his world had always been simple. Now he had a guest from beyond the stars, a princess who had fallen into his life without warning. He could not ignore the truth. The broken pot in the forest was proof that she came from another place, and her words about enemies had not left his mind. He spent the morning tending to his animals, but his thoughts stayed with her. Each sound of the wind or rustle of leaves made him glance toward the trees. Something inside him whispered that danger would not be far away. By noon, Lyra joined him outside. She wore his spare cloak, the fabric far too large for her small frame. She looked around the farm with curiosity, running her fingers along the wood of the fence and kneeling to touch the soil. Aaron watched her with a mix of wonder and worry. She carried herself with quiet grace, but there was always a shadow in her silver eyes. "Enemies," she said softly, her voice carrying the word she had struggled to teach him. She pointed toward the sky and then to the forest. Aaron understood. They would come. They would search for her. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky grew darker, Aaron's unease became reality. A low hum echoed through the forest. It was not the sound of insects or wind. It was mechanical, steady, and unnatural. Lyra stiffened, her eyes wide with recognition. Aaron quickly put out the lanterns around the house. Together they crouched low near the doorway, peering into the night. The hum grew louder, and soon strange shapes appeared between the trees. Machines unlike anything Aaron had seen before moved slowly through the forest. They were tall, with thin legs that bent backward and glowing eyes that pierced the shadows. Their metal frames reflected faint moonlight, and their steps were heavy but precise. Lyra whispered a word in her own language, her tone full of fear. Aaron did not know what it meant, but he knew these were her pursuers. The machines spread out, scanning the ground with beams of light. One beam swept across the clearing near the broken pod, then moved closer toward the path that led to Aaron's home. Aaron's chest tightened. If they found her, they would take her, and he would be powerless to stop them. But Aaron was not a man to give up easily. He remembered every hidden trail and secret passage of the forest. He leaned close to Lyra and whispered, "Come." She nodded, her trust in him clear, and together they slipped out the back door. They ran silently through the fields, keeping low among the tall grass. Aaron guided her to a narrow path that curved around a hill. The hum of the machines followed them, but the trees shielded their movements. Lyra's breath came fast, but she did not falter. She gripped his hand tightly, holding on as if it were her only anchor in this unfamiliar world. At one point, a beam of light swept dangerously close. Aaron pulled her down into a ditch, covering her with his cloak. They lay still as the light passed over them, the ground vibrating with the machine's heavy steps. Aaron's heart pounded, but he stayed calm. He had promised her safety, and he would keep that promise. After what felt like an eternity, the machines moved farther away, their humming fading into the distance. Aaron slowly lifted his head and saw the forest clear once more. He helped Lyra to her feet, and they continued deeper into the woods. Finally, they reached an old shelter Aaron had built years ago while hunting. It was little more than a hut made of wood and stone, hidden under thick vines. He led her inside, where it was dark and cool. She sank onto the ground, breathing heavily but safe for the moment. Aaron sat across from her, his face set with determination. "They will come again," he said firmly. "We must be ready." Lyra met his gaze and nodded. She touched the symbol on her arm, and it glowed faintly. Then she pointed at him, her expression serious. She spoke words he barely understood, but the meaning was clear. She trusted him, and she was asking him to stand by her side. Aaron placed his hand on his chest. "I will protect you," he said. The promise he had made in silence the night before was now spoken aloud. Outside, the forest was quiet once more, but both knew it was only the beginning. The machines had found signs of her, and they would not stop until their hunt was complete. Aaron, once only a farmer, now stood as the protector of an alien princess. And though danger closed in, he felt no regret. He had chosen his path. The forest shelter kept them hidden for the night, but Aaron knew it would not protect them forever. The air outside was heavy with silence, broken only by the call of owls and the rustle of leaves in the wind. Lyra sat close to the wall of the hut, her silver skin faintly glowing in the dim light. She seemed deep in thought, her eyes fixed on the ground as if remembering something painful. Aaron studied her carefully. Though she looked fragile, there was strength in the way she held herself. She was no ordinary traveler. She had told him she was a princess, and the way she spoke carried weight. But beyond her title, Aaron saw someone lost and alone, someone who needed a hand to guide her in a strange world. When the dawn came, Aaron stepped outside to gather water from a nearby stream. The cool air brushed against his skin as he knelt to fill the wooden jug. He looked at his reflection in the water. He was a simple man with calloused hands and tired eyes, yet now he was standing between a princess and the danger that hunted her. It felt impossible, yet also strangely right. When he returned, Lyra waited for him. She touched her arm where the glowing mark shimmered faintly, then looked directly into his eyes. Slowly, with careful words, she began to explain more of her world. Her people lived among the stars, building ships that traveled light years in moments. Each royal figure had a sworn pilot, someone who guided them through battles and journeys. This bond was not chosen lightly. It was sealed with trust, loyalty, and courage. A princess could not stand alone. She needed a pilot who gave their life to protect and guide her. Lyra's own pilot had fallen during the attack that destroyed her ship. The memory weighed heavily on her, and her voice broke as she spoke of it. Yet now, stranded far from home, she looked at Aaron with a new kind of hope. "You," she said, pointing at him. "Pilot." Aaron felt his chest tighten. He had never flown anything more than a wooden cart pulled by horses, yet here was a princess of the stars asking him to stand in the place of her lost protector. He shook his head at first, feeling unworthy. "I am only a farmer," he said quietly. "I know nothing of ships." But Lyra shook her head firmly. She stepped closer and placed her hand gently over his heart. Her touch was light but steady. "Not hands," she said slowly. "Heart." Aaron understood. She was not asking for skill with machines. She was asking for his courage, his loyalty, his promise to stand with her no matter what came. Silence filled the hut for a long moment. Aaron thought of his life before she came, simple and uneventful. He had dreamed of the stars but never believed he would touch them. Now the stars had reached down to him, placing a choice in his hands. He looked at Lyra, at the trust in her silver eyes, and felt the decision settle inside him. "I swear," he said, his voice strong though quiet. "I will be your pilot. I will stand by you, always." Lyra's expression softened. Relief and gratitude filled her face. She lifted her hand from his chest and pressed it against her own glowing mark, sealing the bond in her way. Then she bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect that surprised him. In her world, the bond between princess and pilot was sacred. Now it tied them together across the gulf of two worlds. The day passed in quiet preparation. Lyra showed him the small crystal core she had carried from the broken pod. It pulsed with faint light, warm to the touch. She explained that with time and power, it could grow into a vessel capable of flight. It was not complete, but it was alive, waiting for a pilot's bond to awaken it fully. Aaron placed his hands on the crystal. It glowed brighter, responding to his presence. Lyra watched carefully, her eyes shining with approval. Though he did not understand the science behind it, he felt a connection, as if the crystal accepted his promise. Later, as the sun set and shadows stretched long, they sat together outside the hut. The sky turned deep red, then purple, and finally dark with stars. Lyra pointed to them, naming constellations in her own language. Aaron listened quietly, memorizing the sound of her words even if he did not know their meaning. Finally, she turned to him and spoke softly. "Together," she said. Aaron nodded. Together. That night, he did not sleep easily. He thought of the machines that had searched the forest, of the enemies who had driven her here, and of the promise he had made. It was no small vow. He had sworn to protect a princess of the stars, to be her pilot, her shield, and her guide. It was a path full of danger, yet it gave his life a new meaning he had never known before. Inside the hut, Lyra rested more peacefully than before. For the first time since her fall to earth, she felt less alone. She had found her new pilot, not in the stars but on a quiet farm at the edge of the forest. And in that hidden shelter, a bond was formed that would soon be tested by trials far greater than either of them could yet imagine. The days that followed were unlike anything Aaron had ever known. His farm, once the center of his quiet life, became only a place he returned to for supplies. The hidden shelter in the forest was now his true home, for it was where Lyra taught him about her world and the bond they now shared. Each morning began with the crystal core. Lyra would place it on the flat stone inside the hut, and it would glow faintly as if waking from sleep. She explained that the crystal was alive in a way he could not fully understand. It responded not only to power but to the will of its pilot. The more Aaron focused on his promise, the brighter it glowed. At first, he felt clumsy. When Lyra asked him to place his hands on the surface and guide his thoughts, the crystal pulsed wildly, sometimes flickering as if unsure of him. But she was patient. She told him to clear his mind of doubt and to think not of himself but of their bond. Slowly, as the days passed, the crystal grew steadier in his hands. One morning, the crystal shifted shape. Thin lines of light stretched outward, forming a frame that looked almost like the skeleton of a small ship. Aaron stepped back in surprise, but Lyra smiled proudly. "Awake," she said simply. From then on, training grew harder. Lyra showed him strange controls that appeared along the crystal frame. They were not made of wood or metal but of light itself, forming under his touch. She taught him how to guide them with thought and instinct, not with levers or wheels. Aaron struggled. He was used to tools that followed the strength of his hands, not ones that listened to the quiet strength of his heart. Many times he failed, the ship flickering and collapsing back into silence. But Lyra never scolded him. She only reminded him of his vow, of the courage that had brought him this far. "Pilot is not perfect," she said one evening when he was frustrated. "Pilot is loyal. Pilot does not stop." Her words stayed with him. The next day, when he placed his hands on the glowing frame, he let go of his doubts. He thought only of keeping her safe, of the promise he had spoken. This time, the crystal held its shape. A cockpit of light formed around them, and for the first time Aaron felt what it meant to sit inside a vessel of the stars. The training continued day after day. Lyra taught him how to move the ship in small ways, shifting it across the clearing or rising above the trees for only a few breaths before bringing it down again. She warned him that full flight would require great energy and that the crystal must grow stronger before they could face the sky. Even so, Aaron felt his world expand each time the ship lifted from the ground. The wind rushed past his face, and the earth below seemed smaller, no longer the limit of his life. He had dreamed of the stars since childhood, and now he was touching the first step toward them. But it was not only the training that changed him. As the days passed, he and Lyra grew closer. In the quiet moments after practice, they sat together by the fire. Lyra spoke more of her people, slowly teaching him words in her language. She told him about towers that floated in the air, about ships as large as mountains, and about oceans that glowed under twin moons. Aaron listened with wonder, storing each detail in his mind. In return, he shared stories of his childhood. He told her about running through the fields with his brother, about fishing in the river during long summers, and about the small festivals of the village. To Lyra, these simple tales were as strange and new as her own stories were to him. She listened with quiet joy, and sometimes she laughed softly, a sound that filled the hut with warmth. Still, danger never left their minds. At night, they heard distant humming in the forest, signs that the machines were searching still. Each time, they stayed hidden, but both knew the day would come when hiding would no longer be enough. The crystal ship was not just a tool for escape. It was their shield, their only chance to fight back if the enemies found them again. One evening, after a long day of training, Lyra placed her hand on Aaron's shoulder. Her silver eyes shone in the firelight. "You learn fast," she said softly. "Heart strong. Pilot true." Aaron felt a quiet pride, not in his skill but in her trust. He had begun as a farmer with no knowledge of the stars, yet she believed in him more than he believed in himself. That belief gave him strength greater than any tool or weapon. As the night grew darker, Aaron stood outside the hut and looked at the sky. The stars stretched wide and endless above him. He thought of the promise he had made, of the bond that tied him to Lyra. His life had changed forever, and though danger closed in from beyond the forest, he felt no fear. He was no longer just a farmer. He was a pilot in training, and his journey to the stars had only begun. The forest was calm that morning, but both Aaron and Lyra felt the weight of danger in the air. For days the strange machines had stayed away, but silence was often the sign of something greater approaching. The crystal ship had grown stronger with each training session, its frame now stable and glowing whenever Aaron placed his hands upon it. He could guide it through the trees, hover above the ground, and even climb into the sky for a short while before bringing it back down. Lyra had grown more confident too. She no longer looked as weak as the night she first landed. The fire in her eyes had returned, the spirit of a princess who had been raised to lead. Yet even with all their progress, Aaron knew they were not ready for a true battle. Still, fate did not wait for them to be ready. That afternoon, a deep roar echoed across the hills. Aaron stepped out of the hut and looked toward the horizon. Dark clouds gathered, but they were not made of storm. A massive ship, black and sharp like a predator, cut through the sky. Its engines howled, shaking the air. Aaron felt his chest tighten. The enemy had come. Lyra joined him outside, her face pale but determined. "They find us," she said. Her voice carried no doubt. The hunters had traced her to this world, and now they were here to take her. Without hesitation, Aaron rushed to the crystal ship. He placed his hands on the glowing surface, and the vessel bloomed around them like a flower of light and steel. Lyra climbed into the cockpit beside him, her hand brushing against the controls. The bond between them pulsed through the ship, awakening it fully. The enemy ship descended lower, releasing smaller machines that fanned out across the forest. Their glowing eyes cut through the shadows, searching with ruthless precision. The humming of their engines filled the air. Aaron clenched his jaw. There would be no more hiding. "Ready," Lyra said, her silver eyes fixed ahead. Aaron nodded. "We fight." The crystal ship lifted smoothly from the ground, rising above the trees. For the first time, Aaron felt no hesitation. The controls responded to his will like an extension of his own body. The cockpit glowed with streams of light that moved as he moved. The air rushed past as the ship climbed higher, meeting the dark machines head-on. The first clash came quickly. A hunter drone fired a beam of energy that scorched the air where their ship had been. Aaron reacted on instinct, pulling sharply to the side. The crystal ship darted like a bird, weaving through the branches. Lyra pressed her hands to the console, releasing a pulse of light that struck the drone. It shuddered, sparks flying, before crashing into the forest below. More drones closed in. Aaron guided the ship upward, twisting and diving as beams of fire cut through the sky. His farming life had never prepared him for this, yet his instincts surprised even himself. He moved with speed and courage, as if the bond with Lyra sharpened his senses. She called out short commands, and he followed them without question. Together they moved as one. The battle spread across the forest. Trees fell as explosions shook the ground. Birds scattered into the sky, fleeing the chaos. Aaron's hands burned with energy from the controls, but he did not let go. Every movement was driven by the promise he had made. He would protect her, no matter the cost. At last, the massive black ship loomed above them. Its shadow covered the forest, and its weapons glowed with deadly power. Aaron felt a wave of fear, but Lyra's hand touched his arm. "Trust," she said firmly. Her voice was calm, steady, and full of belief. Aaron breathed deeply and pressed forward. The crystal ship surged toward the enemy vessel. Beams of light shot past them, tearing through the air, but Aaron twisted and rolled, guiding their craft with reckless courage. He dove beneath the larger ship, then climbed sharply, striking its underside with a burst of energy guided by Lyra. The blast shook the enemy vessel, and smoke poured from its engines. The ship roared, tilting violently. Aaron pressed harder, guiding their vessel in a daring climb. They circled the black ship again and again, striking it from every side. The crystal responded to their unity, glowing brighter with each attack. Finally, with one last strike, the enemy vessel cracked apart. Flames burst across its frame, and it fell, crashing into the sea beyond the hills with a deafening explosion. For a moment, silence returned. The drones that remained faltered, their lights dimming before they fell lifeless into the forest. The battle was over. Aaron slowed the crystal ship and brought it back to the clearing. The vessel landed softly, folding back into its core as if resting after great effort. Aaron sat back in the cockpit, his chest heaving, his arms trembling. He had faced death and survived, not alone but with Lyra at his side. Lyra turned to him, her silver eyes shining with pride. "Pilot," she whispered. It was not only a word but a recognition. He was no longer just a farmer who dreamed of the stars. He was her pilot, the one who had fought beside her and brought them victory. Aaron looked at her, sweat on his brow but a smile forming on his lips. "We did it," he said softly. She nodded. Together. Above them, the stars shone quietly once more, as if watching. The forest, though scarred by battle, stood tall around them. Aaron knew the fight was not over. More enemies would come. But in that moment, he also knew they had proven something powerful. Together, they were more than prey. Together, they were strong. The night after the battle was strangely quiet. The forest, though scarred by fire and broken trees, seemed to breathe in relief. The stars above shone brighter than ever, as if celebrating the small victory won by two souls who refused to give up. Aaron sat outside the hut, his eyes fixed on the sky. His body still ached from the fight, but his spirit burned stronger than before. Lyra joined him, stepping softly onto the grass. Her silver eyes reflected the starlight. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They only looked upward, each lost in thought. Finally, she broke the silence. "They will come again," she said quietly. "The hunters are many. The ship we destroyed was only one of their scouts." Aaron nodded. He had already guessed as much. "Then we cannot stay here," he replied. "If they find us once, they will find us again." Lyra's gaze softened. "You are right. We must leave this world." The crystal ship was not made to hide. It was made to fly between stars. Aaron felt his chest tighten. He had never left his small village before the night she landed, and now she spoke of leaving not only the forest but the entire world. The thought was terrifying, yet exciting. He remembered his promise to her that night when she fell into his arms. He had sworn to be her pilot. He could not turn away now. "When do we go?" he asked. "Soon," she answered. "The ship is healing itself, drawing strength from the crystal. When it is ready, it can take us far away." The next days passed with quiet preparation. Aaron gathered food and tools, though Lyra told him many of these things would not be needed beyond Earth. Still, it comforted him to carry pieces of his old life with him. She spent hours near the ship, guiding its repairs with her touch. The vessel responded to her voice, glowing brighter with each command. Aaron often stood nearby, watching in awe as the alien craft seemed almost alive, a partner in their journey. One evening, the crystal ship rose fully into the air without struggle. Its frame shimmered with a steady light, strong and calm. Lyra looked at Aaron with a faint smile. "It is ready," she said. Aaron placed his hand on the ship. Warmth spread through him, the same energy he felt the first night, but now it was steadier, clearer. The vessel opened for them, and they stepped inside. The cockpit glowed like the heart of a star, waiting for their command. As the ship lifted above the forest, Aaron looked down at the land he had always known. The hut, the fields, the river glistening in moonlight. It all looked so small now, fragile but beautiful. He realized he might never return, yet he felt no sorrow. Instead, he felt a deep sense of purpose. The ship climbed higher, breaking through the clouds. The stars spread across the sky in endless numbers. Aaron had seen them all his life from the ground, but from this height, they seemed alive, like countless paths waiting to be walked. "Where do we go first?" he asked. Lyra's silver eyes were steady. "To my people. They must know I survived. They must know the hunters are moving. But there is more. I feel the crystal chose you for a reason, Aaron. You are not only my pilot. You may be the key to uniting more than one world." Her words struck him deeply. He had always thought of himself as simple, just a farmer who lived quietly. Yet the crystal had bonded with him, not by accident but by choice. Perhaps there was something in him that even he did not yet understand. As the ship left the atmosphere, Earth grew smaller behind them. Aaron pressed his hand to the controls, and the ship responded with a burst of light. The stars ahead stretched into lines, and the vessel leapt into the great unknown. For a moment, Aaron's breath caught in his throat. The darkness of space surrounded them, vast and endless. Yet he did not feel fear. With Lyra beside him and the ship beneath his hands, he felt strength he had never known before. Lyra leaned closer, her voice soft but full of conviction. "You kept your promise, Aaron. You swore to be my pilot, and now you are." He smiled, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. "And I will not stop. Wherever you go, I will follow." The crystal ship soared forward, carrying them across the stars. Behind them, Earth shone like a small blue jewel. Ahead, the unknown stretched out, filled with danger and wonder alike. Aaron knew the battles were not over. The hunters would chase them, and challenges greater than he could imagine awaited. But he also knew something else. Humanity, long hidden on a small world, was now stepping into the wider universe through him. He was no longer just a farmer. He was a pilot of stars, a partner to a princess, and a symbol of what humans could become. And as the ship carried them into the great sea of space, Aaron felt certain of one truth. This was only the beginning.